Joining me now is Democratic Congressman Tom Malinowski of New Jersey. He served as senior director on President Bill Clinton's National Security Council. And Katrina Mulligan, the former director of preparedness and response at the Department of Justice. She's currently the managing director for national security and international policy at the Center for American Progress. Good morning to both of you and happy Independence Day. Congressman, let me start with you. The nobody told me defense, and that was Donald Trump's tweets are full of it. He said it publicly. I'm a business reporter, and we know that not only do CEOs not get away with that, but it's actually illegal. You can't say that you didn't know about important things. But the bottom is that's what Donald Trump does. And it sort of allows us to miss the point on what's the failure here. Is it an intelligence failure? Is it a briefing failure? Or is it a President Trump failure?
It's a policy failure is what it is. I mean, first of all, this whole question of was he briefed or not is silly. He was briefed. The intelligence community put it in the president's daily briefing. The standard for including something in the PDB is when the intelligence community thinks it's important enough for the president to know about it. And if he doesn't read his briefings, that's on him. The real question is, what did the administration do with this information to protect our troops in Afghanistan? I've read the intelligence. I can't tell you what's in it, but I can tell you, based on what I've read, every normal administration would have acted, would have at the very least delivered a message to Russia that helping the Taliban while it was killing our troops and Afghan civilians is totally unacceptable. So what did they do with this information? Not just Trump, but his national security advisor, his secretary of state, his secretary of defense, all of whom knew about this. That's what we're going to find out in the Congress.
Katrina Mulligan, I want to play something that former National Security Advisor John Bolton said about the president's response to the allegations of these bounties. Let's listen together.
The president has trouble owning decisions. So when a decision gets made that doesn't go quite the way people hope, suddenly it wasn't his decision. So when this information about Russia arises, it's hard for me to believe that somebody didn't tell him about it. And the fact that there might have been disagreement in the intelligence agencies, that happens all the time. So I'm confused by the White House's confusion over this. I don't think they have a grip on what actually is going on.
Katrina, I think I generally grow a full head of hair before I'd agree with John Bolton on something, but there's something that he says there that is interesting, and he says that the disagreement between the intelligence agencies happens all the time, and that's something we've heard from a lot of people, that things go into the president's daily briefing in which it's noted that one of the agencies dissents in their view of this or doesn't think it's enough, but there's enough there for the president to know about it. He doesn't even seem to acknowledge that in this case.
You're absolutely right. The intelligence community's job is not to eliminate uncertainty. It's to document uncertainty. They routinely identify areas of agreement and disagreement, and they lay those out for policymakers. It is then up to the policymakers, in this case, the president and the national security advisor, to decide what they're going to do about it. That's their job. So I completely agree with Congressman Malinowski. This is absolutely a policy failure. It's not an intelligence failure. From everything we're learning, the intelligence community did exactly what it was supposed to do.
Congressman, the Washington Post has a headline that I think says it all. Sometimes the headline tells you the story. It says the only people dismissing the Russia bounties intel, the Taliban, Russia, and Trump. I don't really get. I mean, this administration's done a remarkable job of politicizing absolutely everything, including the wearing of masks. But I don't understand how this gets politicized. There's no administration that wouldn't be pro our troops in the field, whether or not you agree with why they're there. How does this happen that the Russians, the Taliban, and Trump are denying this, and yet we continue to get information that it probably happened?
I don't know if I can answer that question, but that's what's happening. We seem to have a president who cares more about protecting his reputation than about protecting our troops in the field. And we seem to have a national security apparatus, a Secretary of State, Defense, and National Security Advisor, who are scared to tell the president anything that he doesn't want to hear, anything that doesn't feed his grievances and his prejudices. And that's not a government that's doing its job to protect us. And we have to make sure that that changes. Our role in Congress will be to get to the bottom of this and to make sure, to the best of our ability, that we are holding Russia accountable.
And Katrina, in fact, the president has not succeeded in making this a partisan issue in Congress. Congress at least seems to take seriously the idea that this is happening. Do you think anything will happen as a result of the revelations that we've seen?
Gosh, I want to say yes. I want to say yes because as an American, it's the right answer. Something should happen. The troops should be protected. The president should be taking action. I mean, this is extremely serious. And the fact that the president is trying to play some sort of game of, did somebody tell me or didn't they tell me when lives are at stake it doesn't signal that he's taking this seriously. This is his first obligation as the president of the United States, as commander in chief. And, I'm baffled as to why they aren't taking action.
Congressman, I want to ask you before you go about Hong Kong. You and Representative Adam Kinzinger have introduced the Hong Kong People's Freedom and Choice Act, which is a bipartisan piece of legislation to protect Hong Kongers who are facing persecution, and actually prosecution from China. What do we make of what's happening in Hong Kong and what America should be doing about it?
So, number one, what's happening in Hong Kong is that the Chinese government is trying to crush the freedom of this wonderful, prosperous, successful, and until this point, relatively independent city. It should matter to us, not just because we care about freedom, but because this new law, the national security law that they're imposing on Hong Kong, is supposed to apply to everybody in the world who may criticize the Chinese government. It's aimed at Chinese Americans. It's aimed at American business people doing business there. In fact, technically, it applies to you and me talking about it right now. So we have to do something. The bill that we've introduced, totally bipartisan in the United States Congress, says to the Chinese government that if you suffocate Hong Kong, if you crush freedom in Hong Kong, the United States is going to take a lot of people from Hong Kong and open our doors to them. Business owners, entrepreneurs, scientists, academics. We are saying to Beijing, if you crush this place, you will lose its best and brightest. You will lose its wealth and talent to the United States. We're trying to deter repression in that way.
Congressman, thanks for joining me. Congressman Tom Malinowski of New Jersey he served as Assistant Secretary of State for Democracy, Human Rights, and Labor in the Obama administration. Katrina Mulligan is the Managing Director for National Security and International Policy at the Center for American Progress. Thanks to both of you for being here.